the agenda, item number 5 is call to order and a pledge of allegiance. Please join me in the pledge. To the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item number 6 is reportable actions taken in closed session. Trustee Gasson.
Thank you. On Tuesday, June 22nd, 2021, the Novato Unified School District Board of Trustees met in closed session to review public employee discipline, dismissal, release pursuant to Government Code Section 54957, sub B1. Trustee Nell made the motion to accept Superintendent Koska's resignation effective 6/30/21. Trustee Aguila seconded the motion. The roll call vote is as follows. Trustee Aguila?
Aye.
Trustee Jacobson?
Aye.
Trustee Nell?
Aye.
Trustee Mack?
Aye.
Trustee Butler?
Aye.
Myself, aye. And President Lord?
Aye.
Thank you.
So the measure passes. Thank you, Superintendent Koska.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move. Is that all your items, Diane?
That's it. Yes.
Trustee Gasson. Okay, our next item is approval of the order of business for this evening. Item number 7. I need a motion to approve the order of business. The agenda. Trustee Jacobson moves and Trustee Aguila seconds. All in favor of the order of business? And I see no student trustees in attendance, so I believe that's 7-0 in favor of the order of business. The next announcement of board and superintendents. Questions and comments. Item number 8. Maria Aguila.
Nothing for tonight.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Jacobson.
I have nothing to report.
No items. Trustee Nell.
No comments.
Okay, Trustee Mack.
Nothing to report.
Trustee Butler.
Yeah, I wanted to mention this last week. We lost a past principal of Sinaloa, Kit Gabbard, and I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that. And a family member of NUSD, even if they've left our district or retired or whatever, I want to take a moment just to honor her in her service here at Sinaloa. And I think she was I don't know her if she started as teacher here or what, but when I started, she was principal of Sinaloa, and I think she finished around 2010 as Sinaloa past principal. So
That's a big loss. So can we adjourn the meeting in her honor?
That would be nice.
Appropriate for
think
everybody.
so.
So I have no comments. Superintendent Koska.
Yeah, I have an important announcement to make. Couple of things. One, I just want to thank the Novato community for the last 6 years and giving me all the opportunities they provided to me here in Novato. Learned a lot along the way. Hopefully leave an imprint on this district that's positive and long lasting. In that vein, I want to announce that as of 11 o'clock today, we have a signed agreement with the Coalition to Save San Marin to settle all lawsuits around the lights at the San Marin Stadium. And so we have some technical legal things we need to jump through. Those are just things we need to do with the courts. But the great news is that the lights will be on next year. Our kids will have safe fields to practice on. Won't have to miss as much class to go to games. We'll be able to have football games on Friday nights. It's a very big moment for our community. And so happy to be able to share that tonight.
Congratulations, Chris.
Congratulations.
Nice work.
Yeah.
Thank you. We'll be doing a press release in the next couple of days that gives more details.
So this is breaking news.
Breaking news.
It's wonderful.
Good job, Chris.
Yeah. Thank you.
So with that, we're going to move to item 9, Ad Hoc Advisory Committee Report. And Mary Jane's going to be here. Chris, do you want to introduce the item?
Sure. Super pleased to have been able to partner with Marin County Office Ed on the Ad Hoc Committee. And so with that, I'll introduce County Superintendent Mary Jane Burke. Give us an update.
Great, thank you. Look
welcome.
forward to it. So hello, everybody. I'm going to start backwards and then move forward. So just as a reminder, on or about April 27th, it was obvious that there were multiple issues that the district was, that were converging at the same time related to the district. So I came to your meeting on May 4th and asked if you would please identify an ad hoc committee to work with me. So first of all, thank you to those of you that raised your hand and were willing to do so. And I also want to thank Superintendent Koska and Leslie Benjamin, who also have been attending the ad hoc committee meeting. So the ad hoc, just to give you a little bit of background at this point, have met 8 different times. The first meeting was that first week, May 7th, and the most recent was this last Friday, and we have another meeting coming up this Friday. And there's several things that have been discussed, and I want to just give you a high level on each of those. The first issue that was before the ad hoc committee had to do with moving forward on the independent investigation that needed to take place related to the incident on April 27th related to the N-word, and want to report to you at this point that that investigation started the very next day, May 5th, that Bob Henry, our counsel, took the lead. He hired a private investigator. The investigator essentially hired a diversity expert to help guide. And that investigation is completely finished at this point, as you're aware. And all the information related to that has been transferred to the board's attorney, Sandra Walliver. In addition, there were several interviews held by Walt Buster. Walt Buster is a consultant for the county office, a previous superintendent in multiple districts locally and beyond. He had a chance to interview each of the board members to talk with them about areas that they thought were important for the district to focus on, and in addition had interviews with staff. So that is also, I think, completed at this point, and Saturday we had our first session with him to help support sort of the future communication and other issues in the district. The next issue had to do with the issue of school closure. And at the time of May 4th, Superintendent Koska made a recommendation to the board that he felt the next step would be press pause on the 7-11 committee and to try to articulate his words as close as possible, but essentially framed it will be important for the district to look at how we can be as efficient as possible, keeping all the schools open, and in addition, look for ways to increase revenue and also make any needed cuts. So that came from Chris at your meeting on the 4th, and then on the 18th, you all confirmed that recommendation by Chris. So we'll put that to the side for now. Next issue had to do with the issues of finance for the district, and you know the finances have been challenging for your district over many, many years. This is not a new issue, and so there were a couple of things that have moved forward in that area. One, Kate Lane, Assistant Superintendent at the county office, has already had a chance to begin working directly with Nancy Walker and your new business official. She provided an overview of recommendations to the ad hoc committee, and the full board will hear those recommendations this evening. In addition, you had an existing communication committee that was working, and so there have been multiple conversations about ways that you can increase revenue. The first and foremost is what are the possibilities of families who made decisions during COVID not to have their kids attend the NUSD programs that would possibly have them come back. So your teams are working really hard to get out the word that Novato schools are open. Your principals have been calling families and saying, hey, where are you? We want you back. They've had an open house, etc. So you've been doing a bunch of work in that area, and you'll receive a report from that communication committee tonight, this evening at your meeting as well. In addition, there were some other issues that came forward to the ad hoc committee. Chris just described one of them, right? The issue of the lights. So different issues that have come forward. So for you to know that our next meeting is this Friday, as I mentioned earlier, and then we're going to move to a monthly schedule starting in July. So that's sort of where the ad hoc is right now. In addition, based on Chris's resignation. And so I want to stop just for a moment. And some of you may not be aware of Chris Koska's connection to the countywide efforts in our community. And so, Chris, I just want to take a minute before I describe sort of the next step related to support to you about some of the things that Chris has done at the countywide level, And so I'll just name a few. Just as a reminder, your district was the very first to open an opportunity for students to come into school during COVID as a pilot at San Jose Middle School. You offered opportunity for pop-up childcare to essentially be offered in this community. You offered to make sure that the pop-up childcare through Chris had food. Chris was part of the very first group of superintendents who were trying to identify what should be put on the countywide dashboard that would be helpful to the local community and to the public. You offered sites for vaccinations, and Chris was one of the leads on the COVID safety plan. So all of that was happening during our COVID spaces. But in addition, as you know, you have multiple programs that are in play, whether it's the biotech hosting XR Marin. And Chris and I also had a chance to speak to your PTA about, sort of what was happening in our relationships with public health. He also served on Operational Steering Committee, which is the special ed committee that deals with the needs of special ed kids countywide. He also served on the Ethnic Studies Group. Tonight, the county board, just a few minutes ago, got to hear that report. And Chris was one of the people that was involved in that. Anyway, so you might not know all that stuff. So that's just a few things I could, just sort of make myself sort of stop and think. But in terms of countywide efforts that have been in play, obviously it's always important that the largest district is weighing in. And Chris, for those and many more things, thank you. It's been a privilege to have the opportunity to work with you. So thank you. And so now what's next in terms of support to the district related to administrative services. So you'll be receiving a contract from me for two different levels of support. One will be Dr. Jan Latour Derby. Many of you know her. Jan has been a superintendent in this district approximately 10 years ago. She has stayed up to date and is willing to help support during phase one, which will begin tomorrow. And then we'll be able to go through approximately 48 work days. Then I forgot the number, 384 hours. So Jan will be providing direct support as an interim superintendent. After that, approximately November 1st, Amy Carter will step in to provide support to the district during the time that Jan's working. It'll be approximately 3 days a week, and Amy will be also supporting at no cost to the district. I'll be paying for her time assigned to you 2 days per week. So that's sort of the plan that gets you out to June 30, and then at which point you would be able to continue with an arrangement if you'd like to, or we can talk more about that. I think I had a chance to say to the Hoc Committee, but when the time is that you might be considering the recruitment for a new superintendent, I think it will be critical that you go out for a full search in order to make sure at that time that you determine exactly what it is that you need. There's people that think that this is some sort of a setup for Amy Carter, and I want to assure you that is not the case. Amy Carter actually likes it at the Marin County Office of Education. Not that she doesn't love your district as well, but I do just want to frame that this really will need to be a search, as you go forward. I've mentioned before, and I do want to say it again, it is a privilege to get to serve this district, just so you know. Very often, a large system is able to take care of much of what they need themselves. And so to be able to do so, I'm very happy and privileged to do so. So I would have nothing else to say unless you have any questions for me.
Questions for Superintendent Burke? Thank you. Questions?
Yeah.
I think thank you is owed.
Sure, you're welcome.
Maria, would you have a question?
No, I just wanted to say thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you for coming
And
this evening.
Welcome.
I know, we're at the end of the school year and summer's right upon us, but we're thrilled with your support.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda, item 9, is, item 10, non-agenda public comment. Do we have any non-agenda public comment? We have none. Okay, we're done with item 10. Staff report, community engagement update. Superintendent Koska, you want to lead us in item 10, item 11, sir?
Yeah, so we have Director of Communications, Leslie Benjamin, here to give us an update on where we are with community engagement.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. I want to share my screen. Yes. I'm hoping you all can see this. Okay, thumbs up as you can see. I can't see any thumbs up, but can you see this?
Yeah, we see it.
Yep.
Oh, thank you very much. So thank you very much for asking me to be here tonight to share our community engagement activities. It's been so exciting in the past couple of months to share with our community that NUSD will have full days and full programs in August for the next school year. We started communicating this great news through the superintendent's weekly updates and continued with social media. And two of the images are right here, the full days, full programs that we've been sharing on our social media pages and then also other social media pages. And our strength is our community. In the middle, a little pink icon there is a tagline that we're using to convey truly how strong our community is. And this was a tagline that was a collaboration with our communications team and our administrators. The communications team brainstormed some ideas. We brought it to our administrators and they took a vote, and then we brought it back to them, and this is where we landed. We're very excited about this. And continue our engagement to spread the word about our full days and full programs was a scheduling of school tours that Superintendent Burke mentioned in her report. All schools scheduled tours last week and at the schools and spread the word through their newsletters and social media. And they reported that new families attended and that it was really a great experience. So that was just sort of a little add-on to really get the community excited about coming back to school in the fall. In addition to the tours, I collaborated with each school on developing a short video highlighting their school, showing their excitement about returning for full time in the 21-22 school year. So far, we've had about half the schools with videos, and we've been sharing those and boosting those on social media, and we'll have the rest of them over the next couple of weeks. And recently, NCTV reached out to me to share them on Channel 30, so very excited about that as well. Another effort is our presence at the Nevada Farmers Markets on Selected Tuesday over the next several months. I've listed the dates here on the slide, and we will to engage our community and answer questions that they might have about our programs in schools. We want the community to know that we're here and we're excited about the next school year. We have game with questions for our younger visitors, with stickers, pencils, and wristbands for prizes, and also information on how to enroll. And I have a photo here of our custom canopy so that people know where we are, and so it'll just draw everybody. And since mid-April, we contracted with Target River that has been running a targeted digital campaign with a wide reach of all Marin County and southern Marin and southern Sonoma, relaying the message of a new beginning and an amazing start to build trust with our stakeholders and generate brand awareness, with the goal of retaining students, reacquiring lost students, and attracting new students. And they do this by utilizing trusted forms of paid online and paid offline marketing, video advertising, supported by awareness marketing through websites and apps that people frequently use. In fact, I was at a personal note on the gym, and I saw one of our videos come up on one of the ESPN channels. So I thought, that's fantastic. It's really getting out there. And they produced 2 videos and multiple ads in both English and Spanish, and we've had nearly 2 million digital ad impressions so far. And then in mid-May, we added specific ads for Linwood's dual immersion program. And both campaigns have generated interest that both Melissa Diaz and I have been following up on. So this summer, we're preparing for a full return in August, and we couldn't be more excited to welcome our students back. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Comments from trustees, questions? Trustee Mack.
Thank you, Leslie. This is great work. I love the concise presentation as well.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I really like the thoroughness and the the outreach that's going on in this. So I'm looking forward to seeing results, but also doing what I can to support it. So draft me for, farmers market days and all that kind of stuff.
I will. I'll talk to you about when you can sign up.
Okay. Thank
Any
you.
other comments or questions? Trustee Jacobson.
I just wanted to thank you, Leslie, for all your hard work. I've got to sit in on some of the communications team meetings, and you have a great team of volunteers and staff members that are supporting you, and listening to the conversations in those meetings has been really interesting. There's such a wealth of marketing information and knowledge there already, and then different viewpoints that really are helping guide this. And I'm hoping that the farmers market events are sort of just the beginning of how we interact with the community on a broader scale. So thanks so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Trustee Butler.
Yeah, Leslie, I like it as well, the approach that we're taking. I hope that we can keep the approach going, or the message going all school year. Sometimes when we start something, then we get bogged down with other things that happen. Unfortunately, things fall into play or other things come up, and this sort of gets pushed off. But I would like to see it be consistently in motion all year, and it just becomes part of what we do. The messaging, we continue to put that out there. The other thing was our websites, school websites and our district website, having consistency of those. I know that's been a little bit of a struggle. I like to, if I'm going to look at one school, an elementary school, if I go to another elementary school, I would like to see the same type of thing, using the same platform and everything. And I know we're close, we're there. Can you add any more specifics to that? Maybe I'm saying, maybe we are there and I'm not noticing it.
This spring we did, through the communications team, I heard very loudly that our school websites needed some work. And so we were able to refresh 5 pages and have a consistent look for all of our elementary schools. It was the home page, a parent page, about us, creating a consistent announcement page. So at the same time, we have been lending support to our school webmasters. As you know, they're volunteers. And so we really want to give them the tools and the training they need to keep up those pages. And so we're slowly building up that skill set there. But we have started with having some consistency across all school pages. So, I think as you go check them out over the next month or so, you may see some consistency there. And if you don't, let me know.
Okay. And then one more, sorry.
Yeah, no, keep going.
Our different, our boosters have our website. MSA has a website. STEM has a website. How do we message and PTA, each PTA at a school uses a different form of engagement to engage their parents. How do we make some consistency across that? Or how do we make it aware to parents where to go for, I guess, those different programs, I'm looking at 4 different websites to get
what you want to see.
What I want, I guess, is what I'm trying. Yeah.
So one of the things that also came out of this communications team is the development of a NUSD.org/explore. And so that's a landing page that will have all of those programs on it. It's currently being built, and it's slated to go live next Monday so that it's all ready for when we go to the farmers market. And so as we move forward, we'll see pushing that web page out more and more, where it has all of those programs there. So that's under construction, and that was really the brainchild of this communications team that Trustee Jacobson was talking about, and really anxious to see how that looks.
Okay, great. And then I have one more. What was I going to say? Oh, I just pulled up the sign up for the farmers market. You sent us that a little bit a while ago. If you could send that again, that link. But also, it would be nice for the people who are there when you're not there, since you kind of know exactly what needs to happen. A little write up of what the expectation is of the volunteer, or tracking that you want us to keep track of. I don't know, something.
Yeah, no. That's all
what I'm walking into.
Yeah, no, I'm going to write up what to do, what do you do, and what goes where. Like when it gets set up this next Tuesday, I'm going to take a photo of it so people know how it gets set up. and sort of a list of things that they want to do and things like that. So thank you for bringing that up and reminding me that I need to do that by next Tuesday.
Thank you very much for all the work.
Oh, you're welcome.
Trustee Aguilar?
Thank you so much for all the hard work that you guys have been doing, and appreciate that. I wanted to couple of things. First of all, say congratulations with the Spanish translation on the websites.
Mhm.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and but I just want to say that good job with the translation. Also, speaking of translation, I'm wondering, when you send out the articles from the Marin Independent Journal, I know they're in English and all that, and I'm not asking if we could translate it all, but I'm wondering if there's maybe if we can have a translator just take a summary of that article, because there's nothing else to do. No, but to communicate to the Latino community, also let them know what's going on, because I don't think the IJ will translate their articles regarding NUSD in Spanish. So, but maybe have just a small 2-3 sentence on what the article was about, something like that. Possibility just in the future. And also, speaking of websites, I was wondering, I know that we don't have to do what the city council does. I get it. But I'm wondering if maybe in the near future, we can do I know that they have a button for the community to email all their board members, the city council members at once, one button that will do that. And I'm wondering if maybe in the future that's a possibility that we can do here too, because I know I've been getting a lot of people saying to me, do I have to write to every single one of you individually? And the answer is yes. And so I'm wondering if we can possibly look into that for the future. Thank you.
Other comments or questions for Ms. Benjamin? Okay. This is not an action item, it's a staff report. Thank you very much for the summary. We're thrilled to be moving forward, and I'm glad to see you're told us how to volunteer at the farmers market. I'm sure that this is something that's all on our mind, so that's great. Okay, with that, we're going to move on to the next item, which is, thank you very much. Presentations, item 12A. NUSD budget overview and recommendations discussion. Superintendent Koska, you want to lead on that?
Yeah, I'm sorry. This is 12A. Is this, which item is
Kate
this?
Lane.
Oh, this is Kate Lane. Okay. Well, Kate Lane should be, there she is. Look, there she is up there on the screen. So Kate's going to give us an update on our budget that she has shared previously with Ad Hoc Committee, I believe. And so, Kate, we look forward to hearing what you have to say. Thanks for being here with us tonight.
Thank you very much. Thank you, President Millerick and members of the board. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen, if I may. And I just have to figure out which one of the screens it is. There we go. And I believe that we're going to that. Yeah. Very good. So as Superintendent Koska indicated, I prepared this analysis of the district's budget and made some recommendations and shared it with the Ad Hoc Committee on May 21st. And they then asked that I would please share this presentation with the entire board. So our presentation is necessarily looking at the last data that we had, which was the second interim of 2021. So your budget for second interim. Obviously, this evening, you're going to be moving forward with adopting your budget for 21-22, and you'll be looking at a multi-year projection that takes you out an additional year to 24-25. But really, circumstances haven't changed tremendously since that time. We've identified 3 concerns for the district. One is deficit spending that really starts to pick up in 22-23, declining student enrollment, and a parcel tax measure that expires on June 30th in 2023. And so if we look at each of those different elements, declining enrollment. So we suffered a decline in enrollment in 2021, as the board is fully aware. And yet, due to the pandemic, we didn't count attendance in 2021. So we're still working off of 2019-20 attendance, and that's been very helpful. That has allowed us an additional year of what we term held harmless funding. There's always a prior year guarantee for school districts that if you're in declining enrollment, you can count your attendance, which is known fondly as ADA, average daily attendance, from the prior year, so that you get the higher ADA always. So that's allowed the district to have 2 full years of additional funding, but unfortunately, it then catches up in 22-23 and causes a decline in budgeted revenue of over $1 million. That happens to coincide with an increase in pension rates. So under current law, pension rates, pension relief that's been in our budget for the last couple of years will expire, and we will see an increase in our rates. In fact, we were just recently informed of an increase to the rate we were anticipating for 21-22 because our teachers' retirement system, the CalSTRS system, did not generate the contributions they'd anticipated in 2021 due to retirements, which was again driven by COVID-19. So total cost of your pension rate increases is close to $1 million in 22-23. That, in combination with the decline in ADA, is driving deficit spending. And those pension rates are, of course, driving higher growth in expenditures. And while we've all been hearing an awful lot about pension rates and how they've been increasing year over year, I still thought that it was quite eye-opening to see that we could count on a pretty flat rate of somewhere around 15% of total expenditures would be devoted to payroll benefits for many, many years. It was very, very stable. And then after the pension reform, 2013-14, those rates have steadily increased to the point that today we can see we're over 20%, and it's looking to go to 25% by 22-23 when that rate increase kicks in. That means that that's squeezing out other expenditures at the district. We wanted to look a little bit at the history of parcel tax elections at the district. As the board is fully aware, the last attempt at a parcel tax measure, which was an early attempt to renew the current measure, did indeed fail. But what was particularly concerning as I looked at this data is that the votes in favor, 55.4%, was the lowest number of votes in favor of a parcel tax measure since the original measure that was put out in 1985. And so it is clear. Now, this generates over $4 million. It's about 4% of total revenues for the district. So if not renewed, then deficit spending will increase by that same amount, absent a plan to reduce the expenditures by a like amount. So in 2018-19, which was the last published report, the parcel tax funded over 43.1 full-time employees plus 88 athletic coaching positions. It was used to support your small class sizes, secondary counseling, music and performing arts, libraries, and athletics. These are all clearly elements of the program at the district that are very much appreciated by the community, and it would be difficult to simply drop them. Clearly there's work to be done. There is still time. You have until 2023 to renew the parcel tax, but there's a disconnect with our community that they're not seeing the need. And yet the district has indeed been working on maintaining your budget, reducing deficit spending. It is extraordinarily difficult to work in a declining enrollment district. Every year, your enrollment declining, your revenues are declining, and we've watched the board go through a formal budget advisory committee in 1819, recommending budget solutions for $1.5 million. Then went ahead with additional $1.8 million that were approved for implementation in 1920. And then again in June 30th, 2020, the board approved a $2.4 million budget stabilization plan that was implemented in 2021. So on the one hand, the district has had practice of this and you know how to go about right sizing your budget. And on the other hand, I recognize that this is very exhausting work. It's exhausting for the board, it's exhausting for the staff, and it's exhausting for the community. Nobody likes to spend their time talking about how can we reduce the budget. We all want to be talking about the programs we're bringing on board for our students, and especially in these times. So managing declining enrollment, clearly you've been working at it in your budget reduction plans. I did want to take a moment to note just how difficult the decline has been for the Novato district, in that as a unified district, you're serving kindergarten through 12th grade. And so if we look at what was your decline in the elementary school versus what's the decline in the high school, well, in fact, we weren't declining in the high school. High school enrollment had been increasing at the same time as elementary enrollment is declining. And that means that the district is in the very unenviable position of laying off teachers, multiple subject credentials that serve elementary age students, whilst you're looking to hire teachers to serve your high school age students that hold the single subject credential. So different credentialing requirements, different needs. So very, very difficult to manage. And note the difference in your ratios now. Your elementary has dropped from 70% of your total average daily attendance to 65%, while your high school has grown from 30% to 35%. When we're managing declining enrollment, one of the hardest things to do is to manage your staffing ratios. Students don't leave us in nice, neat little packets so that we just lose a fourth grade class of students. They're spread out across our grades, they're spread out across our schools. And so it can be very, very difficult to keep your staffing ratios intact as you do that. So as we looked at your staffing ratios, and these take us through 2018-19 because that's the available published data at this point. This is all available on eddata.org. Anybody can access it. And so we see that on your pupil-teacher ratio, whereas back in 12-13, we had a 19-to-1 ratio, so 19 pupils to a teacher, it's now fallen to 18 pupils to a teacher. Pupil administrator ratio has fallen from 260 pupils per administrator to 200 pupils. And yet we've seen an increase in pupil services ratio in that there are now 27 pupils versus 21-to-1. And so these graphs do indicate now, I will bear in mind that this is old data now. This takes us through 18-19. And as we just saw, the district has been through 3 rounds of cost cutting since this data was produced. And so today, these ratios may be a little bit different, but it certainly indicates that there is some room to dig a little bit deeper into your staffing ratios. So we did want to point out that the one-time funding that has been received by all LEAs in the state and indeed across the nation has helped tremendously during these times. And in total, as a second interim, over $7.2 million of revenue had been included in your budget, 5.7 of that in expenditures, which indicates you'd actually spent some of these funds in the year previous, 1920, when the pandemic began, but also that you have some of these funds budgeted for expenditure in 21-22 in the budget that you will be adopting here shortly. lots and lots of changes since second interim. And of course, your Lois Standring will be going over those changes with you later on this evening. But we wanted to point out some of the big pieces here that we'd seen. AB 86, which is state funding for the safe return to in-person instruction, as well as federal funding from the third round of federal stimulus, the American Rescue Plan, total $12.7 million for the district. But we also noted some negative impacts that had not yet been noted, were unknown at second interim. Our state unemployment insurance rate increases by 1.18% of all salaries. We do note that the legislative proposal, which is currently being negotiated with the governor, would reduce that increase. And so we're very much hoping for that. As I'd indicated a little earlier, CalSTRS, the teachers' retirement system, basically had to keep their rate flat, but because we lost pension relief, it resulted in just shy of a 1% increase to our budgeted expenditures. And again, I would note that the legislative budget proposal for 21-22 and forward does include $2.8 billion in pension relief, which I believe should be sufficient to buy down that spike in the rates. And so we're hoping very much that negotiations between the legislature and the governor prove to the legislature's side of the house, rather than the governor is looking to spend it on one-time grants. Statutory COLA increases from 1.5 to 1.7, and the governor and the legislature agree with it, have proposed a mega or super COLA, adding an additional 1% in May revised, which, as you can see, would generate an additional $700,000 in ongoing revenues for the district. So in total, way more money's coming in, so upside to the budget rather than downside. And so that is very, very welcome. So we have made some budget recommendations for the district. The first of those to reestablish your budget advisory committee. And I do note that on your agenda this evening, you have a proposal to bring forward, and it's not exactly a budget advisory committee, but to gain stakeholder engagement and develop a process and a plan for deficit reduction. We further recommended that you freeze hiring on all open administrative positions. And while we recognize that is always very difficult to do, and you may not be able to freeze 100%, we would strongly recommend that you press pause, because if you're looking at a deficit reduction plan, then you're undoubtedly looking at reducing staff, because over 85% of the budget is devoted to staff, which means that's really the only place we can make savings. So reducing staff by laying off folk is very painful for everybody concerned. You could save yourself that pain by simply not hiring in the first place. Everybody is further ahead. We recommend that you realign existing costs to these many new categorical funding sources, the one-time funding, and also recognize that you have a very skilled person in your Nancy Walker in your business office, we know does her absolute utmost to make sure that you spend your restricted dollars first and you save your unrestricted funds. We would recommend that you seek ways to multi-fund positions using new or existing resources. So always looking at your resources to ensure that they're giving you the absolute most. And obviously incorporate the impact of any changes, which indeed has happened with your proposed budget that you've already held your public hearing and you will be entertaining approval of this evening. And with that, I would ask if there are any questions.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Ms. Lane, this is great. Do we have questions from trustees? Trustee, no? Okay. So I think we're basically overwhelmed by the thoroughness of the work. I would like to thank the ad hoc committee who sponsored bringing this item forward. And I at this point, I don't have questions. It's just a lot to absorb. And you do correctly note that later in the agenda, we're moving to establish a budget advisory committee. But we're basically looking for our CFO to structure that before the board acts to adopt the structure. So that's the only reason where it isn't the full adopt it. We thought we ought to give Standling, Assistant Superintendent Standling, the right to frame it in a way that's most effective for her. So.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure, please.
Will Kate be participating or providing guidance with our business department in that?
Kate is.
Kate, will you help them in the budget?
Absolutely, absolutely. Whatever process the district develops, I will be very happy to participate in that process. You won't see me forwarding ideas for you as to where you could reduce your budget, but very happy to be there as a person that can provide information and maybe clarification.
Yeah, I think that's all that's all I was looking for, not necessarily telling us what we should be doing, because I think that's a big deal. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, other questions? With that, this is a presentation. There's no action for us to take. Ms. Lane, thank you very much for taking your time to help us move forward on this budget issues. When does the governor, when do we find?
We are hoping by June 30th. Yes, we are hoping to have a budget in place and settled before June 30th. But I can't guarantee that can happen. The legislature have done their part by adopting a budget by June 15th, which ensures that they will continue to get paid. And so they do have a minute to go through their negotiations. But from what we hear, the governor and the legislature are moving far closer together. I would say the two biggest differences between their proposals are the governor has a lot of one-time funding proposals, and the legislature puts close on $6 billion into paying down debt, both the principal apportionment cash deferrals and then some pension relief. And so I'm clearly rooting for the pay down the debt because I think it would help all districts across the state. And with the amount of one-time funding for COVID relief we have received, I'm not in favor of more money that we're told exactly how we may use it. I think each district has unique needs and need to be able to determine locally how best to spend their resources.
Thank you for the update on tracking state politics. Okay, with that, we're going to move forward into the next item, which is the discussion action section, item section 13. And the first item is local control and accountability plan. Superintendent Koska.
Yeah, very happy to have Assistant Superintendent Jen Larson here to present the local control and accountability plan. This is a Herculean effort by staff to pull together this 3-year plan. And so tonight, you got a glimpse of it last week, and tonight is the night for a little more discussion and your opportunity to approve it. So Assistant Superintendent Larson, you out there? There you are.
I am. Thank you. And thank you for having me, trustees and Superintendent Koska. Yes, I am here tonight for the final presentation and also the hopefully to obtain board approval on the 2021-22, which is actually a 3-year to 2024 local control and accountability plan. So as you well know, I was here on June 15th at our board meeting to present the 2019 LCAP final review, the final review of our 2020 LCP or Learning Continuing Plan, and now presenting the next in that cycle, which is our 2021-22 LCAP. That night, we were able to look over what has been done, what actions were prioritized in the past, how were the results, and moving forward, what did we as a staff, but more importantly, what feedback did we hear from our students and community members around the direction that we need to move in the future. As of now, we have finished the review of the prior, and tonight we are here to focus mainly on our moving forward or our future LCAP. The local control and accountability plan is a 3-year cycle. And so this plan, as I mentioned, is going to carry us from 2021 through 2024. The actions that we have in front of us tonight are specific to 21-22, and they are directly in response to the data that we collected both prior to and throughout the pandemic, but also through our stakeholder engagement process. Our stakeholder engagement process is really a key cornerstone of the LCAP development. As I mentioned last time, we really wanted to prioritize not just our staff feedback and our parent community feedback, but really bringing in our students and hearing the voices and the experiences that are happening on our campuses. And knowing that our equity imperative and our anti-racist resolution is really our North Star, bringing in our equity imperative and our equity blueprint team to help keep us focused on that North Star as we develop the plan. As such, we had 6 groups of people who participated in a number of stakeholder engagement meetings. These included the Equity Blueprint team, the Parent Advisory Committee, the Student Advisory Committee, the DLAC Committee, the District School Site Council, and the District Leadership Team. In addition, a new set of voices that we really wanted to include was our community partners. As you know, a good number of the action items that we have in our LCAP tonight really rely on the specialized services and expertise of our community partners. There are a number of community partners that work with us in tandem on our campuses and are very much a part of our day-to-day operations. And so it was important for us to understand from their lens, what is the student experience like and what is their experience like in trying to serve our students to the best of their ability. And so that was another group that we brought in those stakeholder meetings. As we went through our old LCAP goals and looked at our new format for this year's LCAP, there was one significant difference. In the past, we could have multiple goals, but they were very broad goals. And the new LCAP format allowed us to have 2 different levels of goals. We could have broad goals, and then we had focus goals. But as we went through the process, we looked at the old goals that we had, and we thought about our vision and our current mission and work that we've been doing for the last 2 years, and decided that we were really committed, both as a staff and the community, to our 3 guiding goals of our culture of competence, our culture of caring, and our culture of excellence. With the allowance to have these multiple tiers of goals, we determined that those would continue to be our broad goals. The bulk of our action items in the LCAP tonight are focused on those 3 areas. However, it gives us the opportunity to say, but of that, where is the area we need to really put our attention? Where's our focus going to be next year? And while we will continue to be building on those goals, the piece of the puzzle that seemed to really come to the surface as a missing link was our data. How are we able to really make change, really impact student outcomes if we don't have reliable, consistent, and ongoing data? And ensuring that we have the capacity, the access, and a skilled staff to be able to monitor it regularly and act on it. And with that, we identified one focus goal that is high quality database decision making. And that goal sounds like this. NUSD will expand training and access for the use of Data Matters, the district's data management system, in order to implement targeted, time-bound data cycles to monitor and improve student outcomes. Part of this is ensuring that time is allotted for our staff and our principals to be able to look at data. But before we can do that, we need to make sure that they have the training and the access to be able to see it in a user-friendly and accurate format. And so we'll continue to be working on that as our focus goal. And with that at our foundation, we really do think we'll start to see some of the changes that we are hoping for in our 3 broad goals. The unique situation that came out of this last year, as you well know, is a significant amount of funding that is typically not a part of our budgeting, and that's the Expanded Learning Opportunities grant money. In June, we came to the board and you approved our projections and our proposal for how our expanded learning grant funds will be spent. This is one-time, one-year money that is directly aligned with ensuring that students return to the school campuses in a safe, highly supportive, and motivating environment. And so this money is going to be focused goal number 2. By taking all of these funds and putting them in our LCAP as one single focus goal, it allows us to really monitor it closely. How do the action items aligned with this one-time funding impact student outcomes? And are some of them things that we need to see moved into long-term goals of our 3 cultures in the future? And so because of that, we identified it as its own separate goal. Again, because this is a 3-year plan, by having it as its own goal, any of the items that we no longer are able to fund will be easily removed from our LCAP in future years. And then the last but not least is a maintenance of effort goal. And this is a goal that we've never had the opportunity to use in the past. As you well know, the bulk of our LCAP money is our personnel, the facilities, and making sure that we're able to open school doors every single morning and serve our students. The bulk of the LCFF supplemental are those action items that you see outlined in the document. In the past, we've had to spread all of those items out in order to meet one of the larger goals. But now all of our operations and personnel can be lumped together in one maintenance of effort goal. And so that allows us to have a much more structured, easy to read, and user-friendly LCAP document that will be easy for us to follow and monitor, but more importantly for our community to understand and for our staff to use to create their own SIPSAs or their site plans based on the goals that we've outlined here. With that, I think I'm going to open it up for questions, any kind of discussion. And I think just as I wrap things up, as of last week on June 15th, we received no public comment during the public hearing, nor have we received any input between the last 2 meetings. As such, the only updates that have been changed in the LCAP itself are any budget changes that may reflect what you just heard in the budget update from Ms. Lane, and also any changes that you may hear in the budget coming up. But no action items have been changed. As I stated last week, the areas that all of the stakeholders asked us to make changes in is increased mental health services, increased hours for community liaisons, the focus on data, and then and to maintain our 3 goals. And so with that, you have all of the information in front of you.
I'm going to ask if there's any public comment that's come in. None. Okay, so back to the board for questions. What's before us is the superintendent and staff recommend the approval of the 2021 local control and accountability plan. Is there any comments or questions from trustees? Trustee, no.
Well, first, obviously, thank you to you and the rest of the team that put together our accountability plans. Somewhat of an analogy would be this is an annual business plan, master plan that all organizations are going to want to go through to do self-evaluation, review what's working, what's not working, what their complements are. For people interested in a lot of detail around public education, there's a lot of information in here, and so you can basically, if you have a question, you can go to this plan and you can probably find an answer and some of an explanation and some information on what we've done or tried to do about it. So I think it's a very appropriate document. I think it's very well done, and you and your team should be congratulated. But for those individuals out in the public and elsewhere who sometimes wonder what we're doing here in public education in Novato, this document is some great reading. I think that we can stand by our efforts, and these reports are evidence of that. Having said that, to me it's kind of interesting, and I kind of want to constructively be critical that I wonder why it's taken so long for our public organizations to get behind accurate data collection and analyzation, because there's really a lot of truth to what good numbers can tell you when it comes to what's working, what's not working, and what trends are. So on your focus for the first time is focusing on data, and I was just wondering if we're going to do anything different along the lines of data capture. I mean, what are we doing to make it easier for everyone involved to be using the same forms and the same systems. I'm trying to think of some general terms for how we might publicly discuss the capture and collection and sorting of data so it can be queried not only from a standard perspective, but from a custom perspective as well. So do we have the budget items in mind? Are there organizations developing software for public education, et cetera, that are going to help make it easier for our teachers and administrators to collect data?
So Data Matters has really been a solution for us a great deal. The one aspect of Data Matters that has been a struggle is our teachers typically input directly into another resource, whether it's a testing bank, whether it's Aries, and Data Matter pulls out. The next phase of Data Matters is actually to create a function where teachers can directly input into Data Matters. So one of those highlights for that will be that we can have common assessments, and as long as we title those assessments similarly across the district, we will have that at all schools, rather than what we have right now is as soon as the school is done taking it, then we can pull it from Aries. So we want that to become more of a two-way input type of platform, and we're very close to that. As of right now, Data Matter actually does quite a bit of what we need it to do. We just need it in the hands of teachers more readily. And so that's going to be a big focus, and that's actually part of our ELO grant funding, is the expansion to the schools and having some very explicit training for teachers. I think really systematically, the biggest shift you're going to start to see is the tight running of data cycles. So all of our P5 schools last year piloted an idea of having data specialists. And so we've had 4 data specialists at 4 of our elementary schools. And at those schools, they've actually constructed a data cycle form and protocol that will now be expanded to all 13 schools this year as a part of that ELO grant funding. And through that, we'll be running 6 to 8 week data cycles where there'll be a team at every school who's looking at data. They'll be able to use time with their principals on Wednesdays or in professional development time and really start to learn how to access the data, identify where there's commonalities between schools and where we want to put our focus, and then make decisions based on data, not our feelings for our assumptions. And while I think we can learn a lot from our day-to-day interactions, really, how is that coming to fruition in some kind of a data form is the piece that we've been missing.
Cool. So basically, just the first part of the conversation or the question is really about the means. So, and that's where we are right now. We're focusing heavily on the means, the collection organization and migration of data, and trying to make things as efficient as possible with your data managers, et cetera, and training. Hopefully, we will find ways to invest in other tools. And when I say tools, I mean software applications that'll help make things easier and easier for our educators. But ultimately, what this is about are the ends, meaning now that we have all this data that we can rely on, it's consistently collected in cycles, as you talked about. What do we do with it is the next question. And so essentially what we want to get to is we want to get to persuasion. We want people to accept the information that's being presented to them as what works and what doesn't work and what's happening so that we can predict changes in the future. So I think, therefore making evidence-based decisions and less anecdotal or gut feeling, which, believe me, I'm not trying to get rid of gut feeling because it's a good check at every step of the way. But I just think that it's we're at the stage of collection, but at some point we really should emphasize at every turn that as a result of this information, we're all going to do better. And that's really the goal, that we're all going to be on the same page and informed with the facts and not misinformation and or inaccurate information, putting it politely. So again, good job. I appreciate the work we're doing. I think we're headed in the right direction, and I hope we'll be able to support you going forward. So thank you.
So much.
Great. Other comments or questions? Well, we discussed this last week, and we've had a chance to discuss it this week. So I think this board's ready to
I'll make a motion.
Trustee Butler makes a motion to accept the approval of the 2021 Local Control and Accountability Plan, LCAP. Do I have a second? Second from trustee Mack. With that, all in favor? 7 trustees voting yes in favor. Jen, thank you very much. This has been a labor of love, and it's nice to see we're building plans that take advantage of the new tools and techniques that move us forward, so we more effectively use our resources to move our students forward. And through a COVID crisis at the same time, which has made things very difficult. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you so
We're
much.
gonna we're going to move on to the next item, which is approval of the proposed budget for Nevada Unified School District. Superintendent Costa.
So yeah, pleased to present Assistant Superintendent Lois Standring to talk with us tonight about our budget. Lois has been here for a whole 3 weeks now. She's intimately aware of every budget line in every expenditure, and so she's prepared to answer any intimate detail you have about the budget. No, just teasing. As Lois has done a great job of getting up to speed, being very much supported by the business team, particularly Nancy Walker, in the development of this budget. She's here to give you a brief presentation. Thank you, Lois.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And the truth is I have Nancy Walker in my hip pocket, so I think I do probably have an answer to any question. So let me share my screen with you. There it goes. Okay, you can see that?
Nevada Unified School District, June 22, 2021 school budget.
That's it. So last week, well, before I start this, let me just say I so appreciate that Kate Lane came and presented tonight, and I've already figured out what a great resource she is. She came and met with Nancy and I and went over her presentation prior to tonight's meeting. And I so look forward to using her expertise and knowledge in helping with our budget and what we need to do with it in the future. So I need to say, I think she's such a wonderful resource. So thank you, Kate and the county, for providing her. And then I will also say that similar to what Jen Larson said, is we did not get any comments from either the board or the public, and the basic budget remains the same as last week. The one change that you may or may not notice in your many pages of budget materials is we added the detail of the reserves. So you can see that in as you go through all the expenditures and revenues down towards the bottom, it takes the final reserves and just breaks it out into various lines. So not a huge change, just a little more detail. And so rather than go over the numbers the way I did last week, we had a suggestion from the county, and I think it's a very good one, to present budget information in a question and answer form. And we have some basic questions that people, either the public or board members or any staff, might have about the budget. So we're going to go through a few of those, and it might elicit some discussion or at least give some basic knowledge on things that are in our 21-22 budget. So the first question is, does the budget include increased costs for pensions? Well, clearly, after listening to Kate's presentation, that is true. So this is a little summary of the increases for CalSTRS from 16.15 to 16.92, although she did mention that as of just this week, it appears that the CalSTRS may go up even more. So we'll have to adjust at 45-day revise if that is true. And the CalPERS jumped over 2 percentage points, and the numbers on the right show what this the associated increase is for our district, for a total of $612,000. And that's in 1 year. And rates have been going up every year for gosh, has it been 10 years already? Maybe not 10, 8 years, and continue to rise. So it is quite a bit of money. At a later date, I will present a spreadsheet for Novato. It's one that I've used in prior districts that shows the total increase since rates started to go up, and it's quite sobering just how much money has gone into the increases for the pensions. Please just speak out if there's any questions on any of these slides. The next one is, does the budget include the cost of step and column changes for salaries? Well, step and column are things that happen every year. It's an inherent part of the structure of school districts. And for our certificated staff, the increase is about 1.5%, which equates to just shy of $500,000 a year. And for classified, it's a 2%, which, because classified we have fewer members and they're at generally a lower pay rate, that increase is about $237,000. So again, about $700,000. So combine that with the $600,000 on the previous slide, and you're already over $1 million in increases before that's just the basic items in a budget. Does the budget include any increases for the cost of health benefits? For Novato at this point, the 21-22 budget does not include any increases, and that's because there's a cap in the district. There's no increased cost to the district unless negotiations produce that it's decided upon between the district and the unions that they prefer to have an increase in their cap, perhaps rather than a salary increase. Well, a big question this year is, why is there an increase in the state unemployment insurance? Kate touched on that and said how much it had gone up. So just for a little history, generally over the last many, many years, it's usually about a $40 million cost or deposit into the school employees fund. School employees have a special unemployment fund through the state. And $40 million is about the amount that goes in. In comparison to that, payments out during 1920 based on COVID, $237 million. So clearly $40 million a year is not going to sustain $237 million in payouts. So the formula, they have a set formula where they figure out what the rate should be, and it took the rate from 0.05% to 1.23%, which is a $600,000 increase for Novato. So you can see almost all the increases are right around $700,000. Now, another thing Kate alluded to is the legislature is pushing that some of the extra Prop 98 money be used to reduce this rate down 0.5%. So that would be $366,000 reduction from that $600,000. So that would be well appreciated, and we will wait to see what comes out of the budget. And if that indeed comes out, you'll see a reduction in expenditures at the 45-day revise. Okay, does the budget include any vacant positions? Well, apparently I found out that a retirement incentive as well as an intent to separate stipend were offered last year. And as a result of those actions, there were 12 classified retirements and 24 certificated retirements. So although there's no one in those positions to roll for the following year, that we did budget for those vacancies. So that is all in there. And there's special formulas that you use to budget for vacancies. You make some assumptions about what your average person in particular positions would earn and what the costs are associated with that, and put that budget forward. And what is included in special education costs? We could do a whole presentation on this clearly. I learned that Novato Unified has approximately 808 special education students. This, of course, is a moving target, but for the report that I pulled, that is, and it was a CalPADS report, that's how many students there were. And we have services that are provided by the county office, by non-public schools, and of course our classes here at Novato Unified. The cost of Novato that we pay for our own classes as well as non-public schools is $14,392,000, and cost for the county services is $2,743,000. And to put this in perspective, and I know we talked about it last week, the contribution to cover these special education costs is a little shy of $11 million. So here is $17 million in costs, and we have to contribute about 11 million. So that means there's $6 million in revenue, and our general fund covers the difference. Any questions on that?
Questions for the board?
Could you say that again?
Yeah.
The math?
Could you repeat it, please?
The math?
The last part.
Just the math. I somehow.
Okay. So if you add these two expenditures of the 14 million and the 2 million, it's about $17 million. And we contribute from the general fund about 11 million. So in other words, out of the 17 million, 6 million is covered by special ed revenues, and the difference comes from the general fund.
Right. I was, when you were setting it up, I was thinking it the other way, which is why never mind. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I think we're good in the room. You want to proceed? Yeah.
Okay. And so this was an interesting question. What steps are needed to reduce cost? So instead of getting into actual items, because clearly from another item we have on the agenda, that is going to be a full discussion in the next several months. So here are some of the things that come to mind for me, especially coming into a brand new budget. We need an analysis of all parts of the budget. And that's not just a cursory look. It's pulling it apart and looking what makes up every single dollar we spend, so that we can really have a conversation about what is it we have to have versus what is it we want to have, need to have, like to have, all those different words to figure out what we're actually going to spend our money on. And it's very important that you look at things as a whole. If you start to have conversations about individual pieces of the budget, you can start to make decisions, and everything, you just have to look at it as a whole so that you know what your total expenditures are, and you're making decisions and choices when everything is on the table. You can get yourself in trouble if you start looking at just pieces because you say, yes, this is very important. But is it more important than this over here or that over there? And so I'm hoping I can create a structure where we are really looking at a menu of things that make up what we spend our money on in Novato. And then once you're analyzing the budget, you look for systemic changes that reduce ongoing costs. These are things, not just, we're not going to buy this software or those books, but are there things, and one thing that Kate was talking about is the idea of staffing ratios. And that is something that if we examine it, it could make a huge difference if we really look at that and are consistent in how we staff our schools based on the number of students or the needs of the student, not just numbers, but you also have to, of course, consider the needs because at certain schools, the needs are different than at other schools. It's very important to make comparisons with similar districts, not any other district, because as we know, community funded districts, we can't really compare ourselves to them. We can't say, oh, look what they do, we better do the same thing. So we have to find what districts we want to use as our normal comparisons and start to see, are we being reasonable? Are we way under? Are we way over? Those kinds of conversations. And then, of course, we have to elicit stakeholder input. We want our community to both understand our budget and feel that they have input into decisions that are made and letting us know what is important to them. Okay. And are there ways for the district to increase revenue? Well, of course, average daily attendance fuels revenue, and you can when you're thinking of that, you can either increase the attendance rate of enrolled students. I have seen numbers for Novato, and I'm fairly impressed. I saw a lot of 96% attendance rates. That's quite good. I mean, I suppose it could still be increased, but 96% is impressive. But on the other side, if you don't increase your attendance rate, you can increase the number of enrolled students, which I know that is what we're attempting to do right now. So there can be lots of discussions about ways to do that. And of course, maintaining the parcel tax, it doesn't really increase revenue, but it prevents a loss of revenue. And I feel a very important one that I wanted to share is begin using the alternative income form. This is in place of or in addition to our applications for free and reduced lunches. And I have seen examples in districts where bringing this forward as part of the registration packet significantly increases the free and reduced population. You can, by the answers on this form, you can categorize someone in the free and reduced category for supplemental funding consideration. They don't qualify for free and reduced meals, but they fall into that same category. And I will just give you the example that in Windsor, we went from 39% up to 51% just by using that form. And it brought quite a difference in funding. So I'm going to encourage that we begin that process if we have not already. And of course, there's lots of grants that exist, and they work well for specialized programs. They usually don't work so well for ongoing costs because mostly they have time limits, but they can very much supplement the programs and offerings that we have for students. Okay, that's what I have to present. I will entertain any questions on these items or on anything that you might have as you peruse the exciting budget in your packet.
Trustee Jackson, and Trustee Nell.
Not so much a question, but a comment and just sharing an appreciation for how you laid this presentation out. I think it helps create a lot of visibility on our challenges in the sense that, you know, there's things, we always say there are things that we can't change. We always talk about how large our budget is made up of personnel costs. But this actually identifies and says, we can do nothing and there's an automatic increase in people's salaries. So that's you know, something visible and to start communicating out so that there's an appreciation for, we could, you know, say, okay, we're not hiring, we're not doing anything, but we're still spending more money out the door. The other thing that I really liked and I actually had never heard of was the alternative income form. So you know, I love that there's new creative things that are coming to us because we've been trying to find those pockets of money and stuff. And so that seems like that might be a nice little thing that we can incorporate. But anyway, it was just a general appreciation for your perspective and presenting the information as you've done.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Other questions? Trustee Nell and then Trustee Mack.
Yeah, I also appreciate the way that you listed out the different things that affect us from a cost perspective, and I think this is a good place to start. These are the items that we should talk about, and I would just encourage you to get more in-depth information as we go along, because we're quite frankly going to be in a situation we have to make sure that as we engage the community and regarding the decisions we make around either raising revenue or cutting costs, that we're able to give more specific, detailed answers to the where and the why. Obviously, you know, just generally speaking, pensions are essentially completely out of our control. How we'd phrase that in a report or a presentation certainly would be for discussion. It's also a very politically charged issue. For instance, the governor was more than happy to be contributing to controlling the rate of increase, but unfortunately in a recall election year, that is no longer something that he seems to be as enthusiastic about as he had in the past. So eventually, at some point, the people of California are going to have to come to terms with that particular issue and make a decision about change. When we get to things like step and column, I think this is an issue that I don't think a lot of people understand, that essentially as an employee works in a public organization based on the amount of time they spend, they get automatic increases based on what's set up in their classification or certificated columns. There's also their abilities that the better they train themselves and the more advanced they are in their professional development through the degrees and certificates, they get to go for a column and get increases. But we also might, talk about whether that's the type of thing that is negotiable, or just from a historical perspective, is that something that Nevada Unified has ever suspended, for example? I know the answer to these, but I'm just thinking probably get a little more detail on this, because I think people look at that and they go, well, that's great, man. I would love to work somewhere where I get a raise every year. But I think we need to talk about what controls that. Health insurance, we all live in that world, and without getting too broad, but obviously that's another area similar to pensions. We just really don't have any control over this. We can implement marginal things around safety plans and make conscious decisions about who we employ and don't employ, which is controversial in itself. But I would put that in that we don't control that very much. Hopefully the state unemployment insurance is the type of thing that'll be a one-time issue and that'll work itself out over time, but hopefully we're not talking about that for too long. But again, that's I'm just looking to add detail and more specific information. The vacancy issue that seemed to add up to basically, as people retire, we're able to replace them with someone theoretically younger, less experienced, and therefore they cost less. But I would just remind people that a lot of lower costing, inexperienced people may not be what you want teaching your children. And just this is a serious issue that I think even the governor has been trying to address, and others, but I'm not sure culturally, community-wise, that we're as aware of this problem as much as we should be, because we're running out of qualified, experienced teachers, and that concerns me, because we are every year asked to make allowances to hire teachers or instructors with less than perfect credentials. So that's a trade-off, certainly. And what's included in special education costs, another big category. I think the most popular phrase that you could associate this with is unfunded mandates. We are told what to do and how to do it, but nobody gives us the money to do those things. So essentially, we, on a regular basis, just have to take a higher and higher percentage of our general funding and steer it in that direction. I think a lot can be done to control or to fund these efforts in a better way. But again, I don't think people understand that this is an issue that we have much control over. So I commend you. This is great work. It's a good place to start. But as we go forward, I'm hoping to work on more and more details and specifics, so that as questions and conversations and communications and I guess engagement with the community goes forward, that we're in a position to give people the facts and the truth about public education and how it's funded and what it costs to run. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You're very welcome. And I totally agree that this is only a starting place. And I hope to bring detail to particular items, one or two at a time, so we can really discuss them and get into them.
I love that. So I'll just run with that. But also too, just go back to this format. I think we've been guilty at times of kind of pushing out this format that makes us all kind of glaze over, especially our public folks trying to figure out how this works. I think each one of us as a trustee has probably had a learning curve on how the various standard charts work, and I'm still learning it at times. I still have to kind of go into that mode to understand it. And I think the less we use that format, the more you use tonight's format, I think the better, Lois. I love it. I think this is a great way to really get at the main issues. Because let's face it, we don't have to get into every little detail for the presentation, but let's focus on visual, like you did, visual conveyance of the issues, and it really helps people to distill it and understand what they need to know. And I think I love this the step and column point, which Diane hammered, and so did Derek, and I'm going to hammer it as well. Folks, we just sit still and our budget goes up $1.3 million and we still need to cut 2.8 or whatever we are. So now we need to cut 4.1. So that is what we're looking at. And anybody who thinks that we're just, wasting money needs to really understand this. So it's very important. Last but not least, and you touched on this, and I know it's a third rail, that's why it's probably not in writing, but is the ratios. I believe, this is one trustee speaking, we've done a lot of work at cutting various pieces and parts of this budget. We've done a lot of difficult decisions, and we are now down to bone. And it's time to start looking at real structural changes. And I think the ratios are probably the biggest piece of that.
Do you mean class size?
Yes.
Okay. You just, I
Yeah.
know. Teacher to pupil ratio.
Yeah, teacher to pupil ratio, as well as admin to site as well. Whatever we got to do. But it's time to start really looking at those because we haven't touched them. And I know that is, once again, a third rail, but I'm here to put my hand on it. I think that's what we need to do because we're looking at big numbers that need to be solved, and you don't solve them with cutting a 0.2 FTE here and a little program there and $50,000 in marketing costs, to throw a favorite out there. So thank you, Lois. Keep it coming. I love the idea of tackling this one or two items at a time, because if we throw the whole thing at us at once, 7 people, long-winded people talking about it, we'd be here till midnight. So I love the idea of prioritizing and going through them as you see fit. So let's do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other comments or questions, Diane?
I'm just going to jump in. So if anybody's listening right now, we need the parcel tax. Parcel tax helps with those ratios because that's, it really, that $4.1 million that we're looking at, we need to have that and actually a little bit more so we can do those increases, which is why having a stagnant amount, it just doesn't go as far because those positions automatically, the salaries increase, which means that it pays for less, and which is why an inflator was asked for in this last one.
And I'll take that a step further. Lois, thank you again for bringing this up. The fact that our approval percentage on the last attempt was the lowest since 1985, I'm not holding my breath.
Well,
I'm going to go ahead assuming that we are not going to get a parcel tax.
No.
I'm saying that right now.
Oh.
And that's what we need to budget for.
Well, you can
And if
also
people are listening and that scares the heck out of them, good. They need to understand that. But we need to go forward as if it's not going to happen. That's my take.
Other comments? So I'll offer one comment and then we'll move to vote. Lois, the decision to put the discussion in a question and answer format, I think is a huge step forward. It communicates not just to somebody who's knowledgeable and is used to reading spreadsheets, it communicates to the community at large. And I think one of the opportunities we have in moving forward is to make have a more informed population in our community, and that's a step in that direction. So thank you very much for the revision and the presentation.
You are welcome.
And with that, I will ask for a motion to the superintendent recommends and staff approval of the 2021 proposed budget for the Nevada Unified School District as presented. Trustee Mack is making the motion, and Trustee Gasson is seconding the motion. With that, we're ready to vote. All in favor of adopting the budget as presented. 7 trustees in favor, none opposed. The budget's adopted. So
Thank you.
Lois, move straight into your next item and skip and have you talk about approval of the local control funding formula. If you're prepared.
I am.
Okay.
This is what this is. Oh, no, I don't know how. I'm sorry.
We are easily confused in this room, so
Yeah, I am definitely confused on this one. I know how to do a PowerPoint. Let's try that. Does this do it? Well, sort of. How big is that on your screen?
We can see it, and we have some of us.
We have copies.
Okay. And this is not an item that needs to take long. This is a compliance item. A few years back, I think this might be the third year it exists. The state requires us to, as we were talking about in my previous presentation, I tried to make things visual. This is trying to simplify the LCAP for parents. And so this is a template. Every district in California has to create this template. There's a place you plug in your certain numbers, and then it pops out this graphic for families. It's still, in my mind, a bit cumbersome with the language, but it does simplify somewhat where the funding from the different categories, whether it's supplemental or the base fund for local control funding formula. So I don't really have much of a presentation on this other than to answer any questions that you might have gotten from looking through it.
Questions for Mrs.
I
Stanley?
move.
We have a motion. Trustee Mack moves,
Second.
seconded by Trustee Butler. Any discussion? Any public comment? Hearing none. We are moving to a vote. All in favor of this item? 7 trustees in favor. The motion carries. Lois, we're moving.
Thank you.
Next
All right.
item, approval of.
One more. And this is an item that's been alluded to quite a bit this evening. I got the understanding that you would like to have some sort of form of community input for budget adjustments, budget reduction, and that is totally appreciated, and I agree with it. But I will say that my experience with the traditional budget committee has not been favorable. And that's why I am asking for the opportunity to spend a little time this summer coming up with a plan that includes the public in a good way, but also includes similar what we were talking about, detailed discussions about pieces of the budget. So we look at the whole thing and come to some conclusions at the end of that process, but including the public along the way. So I plan to do some investigating about what other districts do. I plan to utilize Kate Lane in discussions and be able to bring to you by late August a plan for us to move forward with our budget adjustments, including the public.
Do we need to vote on this?
Comments from trustees?
I have a comment.
Trustee Jacobs.
I just want to say, Lois, that you have just in our short time together proven to be very mindful, and I hope that we can sort of support you in this way by letting you look at it first and come to us about what you feel
Thank
is
you.
the best move.
I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Thank you so much. Tonight's presentation was great, along with last week. So I really support you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or? Yeah.
Just using your resources, using Nancy Walker, using Leslie Benjamin as your resource of what we've done in the past. Just, talking to some of our staff members and maybe to our principals. We've done a survey approach that wasn't really, it sort of helped, but not really. Parents couldn't quite understand the full explanation of the reduction. We've done the budget advisory committee. Some districts have that as a standing committee, even if they're not making cuts, but it's more informational to the community. So I appreciate you wanting to, like, as Trustee Jacobson said, taking a step back and getting a handle on it, and then approaching back to us and telling us what the plan is. But again, just using your resources to the community. And for me, I don't want a Band-Aid approach. We're putting a Band-Aid on, we really have to make some reductions. Let's do it. And no matter what, this is going to be hard for the community, and we have to accept that. School closure was very hard for this community. It's just going to that's just the approach. Budget reductions are hard for any community. And we just, unfortunately, have to accept that. But it's how we do it. It's the approach we take, the transparency that we address, and explain things properly is key to that, I think. So those are just some thoughts.
Thank you.
Other comments? I'll add, this is probably part of the most important work we're going to do, and having the community engaged in a meaningful and powerful way is important. And I'm thrilled that you want to make sure your hands and fingerprints are on the process. We're going to be relying on you for a lot of the structure. And so we're thrilled to be able to give you the free hand here tonight and our vote of confidence in your ability to put a framework together that's going to work with that for this district. So it's our honor to approve this recommendation and give you the tools to manage your office. So with that, I'll take
so much.
You're welcome. I'll take a motion. Trustee Gasson moves the recommendation, and second by Trustee Nell. All in favor? 7 in favor. We have a consent item next, and there's one discussion item after that I'd like to make sure that we take care of. So do we have any public comment on discussion item? No public comment. So approval of the consent item, it's at the end of the meeting because it depended on some prior actions that we've already taken. So are there any items to be pulled from the consent by any trustee? Hearing none, I need a motion for the consent item. Trustee Mack moves, Trustee Butler seconds. All approved, 7 trustees. Now, one more item. Trustee Costa, or Superintendent Costa, we would like to thank you. We have short notice, but we would like to thank you for your contributions 6 years to this district to make Nevada a better place. And I think there's some comments that would like to say to you personally before we leave tonight. So, Diane, did you want to start there?
I just want to say I've really enjoyed the time I've had to work with you. It hasn't been that long. I missed your first part when you were in HR and stuff like that, but I've learned a lot working with you. I'm going to miss you, but fully understand family and health first. So I wish you well in your new endeavors.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris. The last 2 years have been crazy. And I think that speaks to all districts. This was clearly unusual. As a new superintendent, though, you did step up and you made sure the safety of our students was a top priority and getting kids back into class, especially this last year. And just out of the gate in 2019 was unbelievable when you first started. I was like, with the conversations we had were, this is not normal. That was always the case. This is not normal. So, but you always said, we're going to get through this and we're going to address it and move forward. And that's what your approach was always, let's keep moving this district forward. And I appreciate that. So you've left us in a we have kids back in class. We're starting the year off with back to somewhat normal. And that has a lot to do with your leadership. So thank you.
Thank you.
We seem to have a parallel path, huh? We started, I was a candidate when I first met you, sitting over there in 107, and you were a brand new HR guy, and you're wondering, who is this guy? And I was wondering, who is this guy? And but it's been a good experience because you were a very important part, not only as a superintendent, but also in the HR realm. You were a very good representative for us in all the negotiations. I think you ran a very, very clean HR shop, so we can't ignore that. And then let's face it, as a superintendent, what, 6 months in, 3 months in, here we go. And it wasn't easy for any of us. But throughout it, what was clear to me is your heart was in it, 100%. And that's what I really appreciate. I think there are times when each of us were kind of ready to throw up our hands. Maybe we did. Ready to say certain things about certain comments. And through it all, you were keeping us straight through it, which I really appreciate. And for what it's worth, I don't use Facebook much, but I got this dumb little page and I posted something today because I thought it was a bit timely. And that is, there's a Washington Post article that goes into great detail about the skyrocketing rate of superintendent resignations. I wonder why. So what I'm trying to get at is, I'm totally understand this. You're not alone. And I think this year and the prior year are going to be looked at as extraordinary, and surviving it is a badge of courage, and you did. So most importantly, I want to thank you. Thanks for everything you've done.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
So I'm awful at long goodbyes, but you certainly are owed a debt of gratitude and acknowledgement. Your management of the district through a pandemic is remarkable, and I think that as time goes on, people will come to realize just how difficult things were and the extraordinary effort that you put into it. So I'm certainly grateful, and I'm, on behalf of the community, want to extend and acknowledge your efforts and appreciation for the work that you did. And this doesn't have to be goodbye. I think that I personally would look forward to a long association and keeping in touch and sharing ideas about public education, state legislation, and to see how things are going for you. I think they're going to go well. I think you are a talented, exceptional person, and I really do wish you well and look forward to hearing all about it as time goes by.
Thank you, David.
So you are the only superintendent I know in this district in this role. So it's been great working with you, and I truly appreciate that as we navigated COVID, that was not the only thing you looked at. You were really concerned with how do we continue to make sure we're doing all the things that we're supposed to do and do those well. And I really appreciate that outlook. I think that was really important for us, and that put us in a better position now once we are kind of coming out of COVID, that we didn't just drop the ball on all the other things. And I also agree that I hope that we get to see all the bright, exciting things in your future. Thank you.
So I'm just grateful that I had the opportunity to work with you. As I was vice president for that time, got to meet with you every Tuesday, and I just remember that, like, one of the first Tuesdays you said, I mean, we had suicides, and it was just crazy, and your attitude was always positive. Like you were like, okay, is this like normal as a superintendent? Is this like what really happens? And we were like, I remember Debbie and I, we were like, this is not normal, you know. You're like, okay, just checking. And so I always admired your attitude of gratitude that you always had to be working here, and you made things so positive, and you were able to, like, I noticed that you simplified things. You know, you made, like, I wouldn't have known what to do in such a big with a big issue, a big problem. With, you know, let's not mention the pandemic, but you were able to kind of manage. You had the ability to manage things and prioritize things, and always keeping the kids in mind. And you know, you make sure they weren't hungry during the hard times, and you supported our teachers with what they needed, academic, with technical stuff, and so just you always had the kids in mind. So thank you. And personally, you just I know you will do great wherever you do, whatever you do. You've got that ability, and the professional ability and the personal ability to move any organization forward. I know you do.
Thank you.
And so you have my support in anything in the near future, 6 months, whatever. Just to reach out to us. And, you know, now I'll be happy to support you.
Thank you, Maria.
So I get to go last. You drew the COVID card in the middle of your superintendency, and this town depended upon your leadership to get the kids educated and served. And we did that with a combination of at-home connectivity. We were fortunate that we had made progress in years before, but you leveraged that and made sure the connectivity was there. You built the VBA, so we had 2 alternative ways of reaching families and children. And we had a diverse population. There were some students who wouldn't have had lunch or dinner every day if it hadn't been for this school district. And we put together a program, you put together a program that made sure, in spite of learning reading and writing and math, they had food on the table to eat. People forget that school districts cover the range, the entire range of the population in a community. And they think it's just the kids who maybe have two cars in the garage, in the driveway, or in a garage. They forget the people that maybe the child's living in somebody else's living room, is basically homeless and couch surfing. That child has to receive the same services as every other child, because this is democracy. The heart you put into that exercise, I am proud to call you my friend. You have done that work admirably. You taught me about voluntold service to make sure that you were down monitoring lines so teachers could get vaccinations, so they could serve the students. The efforts that you put forward to serve this community and through this school district, I admire. And I know this is a circumstance that just is, the world has come upon us, and our personal circumstances are such that we have to make choices to take care of our own life first, because you can't give if you're not whole inside. Thank you for years of service, and good luck in the future. And call on me in the future if I can help you take the next steps. I think that takes us to the end of our agenda, sir.
If I could just say something real shortly.
Yeah.
I appreciate all of your words, appreciate all of your energies over the last 6 years, and particularly the last 2 years that we've been together. I truly don't know what my future holds. And I'm a planner, right? I knew what was I knew my retirement date. I knew what I was gonna be making when I retired. And to enter boldly into this new world with no plan is scary for me, but I have a plan. So my plan is that for the next month, I'm not going to have a plan. See, so I have a non-planned plan. So that's going to help me get through this. And I'm really excited about what the future holds. For 30 years, I had a goal, and I achieved that goal. And now I get to look at all the other things that are out there and that are available to me in different ways that I can help to change the world. And that's what I'm committed to, is doing work that helps to change the world and make the world a better place. And while I don't know what that's going to look like, I'm excited about the opportunity. And I just appreciate your support through these terribly hard times. I could appreciate you continuing to put the needs of kids first. And I know that NUSD is ready for a new beginning next year. It's going to be fantastic. And I look forward to watching it happen. And of course, I will be available as needed to support whoever is aiding in these transitions. And I know that more often than not, the phone won't ring, and that's okay too. But I wish NUSD all the best and wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So with that, we're going to adjourn in Kit Gabbert's name. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Trustee Butler? Sir, thank you very much. And with that, we're adjourned for the meeting of 6:22.